if my space is a smaller, like those little cute space, those little niche spaces, you got to know your square footage and your margins is not going to be that good, especially if it's multiple people eating. You're walking around and and you may not like something, but in 5 minutes I done went through the whole store. So you got to think about it like that means my foot traffic, I needed at least 200 people walking through there daily, and we was barely getting 50 to 60 people. The average customer is walking out with a sales price of $10, maybe $15, and I may be getting 50 people on a good day, but on the average we was probably getting like 20. And you go get the location and you realize the overhead kills you, and it's not the customers, but it's mainly the overhead and the rent that's killing you. Now the money that you were making, you're not able to see that profit because all the money you make, you pour it right back into the building. If I don't have a rainy day fund, an emergency fund, if I don't got that 4 months, I'm gonna be stressed out come grand opening and grand closing. Hey, what's up, guys? You know what it is. It's your boy, Sebastian Sanders. I am back with another episode of Money Mondays, guys. This is your weekly money, business, and mindset podcast, business show, #1 business show where we talk about critical business skills. We talk about how to apply these things to your life. Man, everything we do here is a different way that you have been observing business knowledge and content. Everything we do here is to really help the everyday entrepreneur, everyday small business owner, or even the aspiring business owner with practical skills that you can take and apply to your business and help you get to the marketplace. So let's get right into it, guys. This episode, we're going to have some fun this episode, man. I want to talk about why most entrepreneurs should not open a storefront. And here's my real overhead lesson. If you guys know anything about me, I'm very honest. I'm transparent because once you've overcome and you've been down something, if you've been through something, it's easier for you to kind of like articulate your words and tell people and also educate people, right? And so when I speak from experience. And so today's episode is a very vulnerable one, and it's a very good one because I think this can help save some headaches and save you a lot of money if you take heed to it and you understand. Just because you have customers does not mean you need a location. Oh my God, man, let's pause. I don't know why we rush to get a place. And I think it's an ego thing. I think we feel so good about getting a place because our name is on the building. And that's me. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like my whole life, I wanted a building. And for obvious reasons, I really don't even know why I even was in a rush to get a building, because at the time it sounded like a grand idea. But now I reflect back on it, it really was, I want to say, a little bit of an ego-driven thing that I was doing. But the business model that I had didn't really help. It helped the business from a social standpoint, but it killed my bottom line. The thrift store killed my bottom line. We'll talk about that here in a second. But just because you have customers don't really mean you need a location. So my personal story, a few years ago, I opened up an event space. This is my first physical location, my first, I guess you could say, brick and mortar, right? What I didn't know about the event space was, what I should have thought about was, I entered into it in a partnership. Shouldn't have done that, because if you're going to do a partnership, you got to have a facility or some type of building that's big enough for all partners to eat, right? Just because, we got this space and, it looks good, the numbers are good, is it enough for us to walk away with? Kind of going back to the previous episodes we talked about, when we talked about profit and pricing your product or your service, understanding your margins. If my space is a smaller, like those little cute space, those little niche spaces, you got to know your square footage and your margins is not going to be that good, especially if it's multiple people eating. So that was the first thing I didn't factor into that, and I should have, right? Rent. I mean, commercial rent is crazy depending on where you go. The only time you get a really good deal on rent is if you're in an area that's not perceived to be a good area, or you're in an area that's new and developing and there's not enough foot traffic out there. You got your rent, you got your insurance. Insurance is a silent killer. Oh my Lord. Man, guys, my insurance was a silent killer. And I had to get like 3 or 4 different insurance policies because I had to insure everything in the store. I had to insure my staff. But also, remember, the thrift store was operating under the organization because it was a contribution to the program. And so I had to go and get insurance to make sure when kids are coming here to do the program, all of my kids are protected and they're all insured. And so that's a whole nother thing. So you got to think about it. I got 4 insurance policies. Staffing. I had to have my staff in there. Now, luckily, we were employing a lot of our students that were through the program. So when you're employing students through high school, typically you want to pay them anywhere from $10 to $15, which is more than minimum wage. But it's also good for them to eat, right? And make some good money. So you got to think about the staffing, the maintenance. For us, the maintenance wasn't really that bad. But you still got to upkeep it, and we clean ourselves, so maintenance wasn't bad. But in the beginning, when I first got the location, I had to pour into it. The cosmetics, the aesthetics. Get the outside redone, get the banners up, had to paint the walls, and we had some plumbing issues in the beginning, so you got to do all of that. I didn't think about the large square footage for both of those facilities. The event space needed more square footage because certain people wanted to do bigger parties. Bigger parties, more money. The little small space, you're not charging that much, right? And so you got to think about it. You're not even making that much money off of each rental. I didn't think about that in the beginning. And then the thrift store, we had a small space, but I'm not able to put a lot of product out. The thing about a thrift store, when you walk into like the Goodwills and the other thrift stores, those mega centers, they got so much stuff out. So if I don't like something, it'll take me another hour to walk around and find something else because there's so much in here. In my store, we had about 1,500 square feet. I think 1,500 or 1,300, I can't remember. You're walking around and you may not like something, but in 5 minutes, I done went through the whole store. So you got to think about it. Like, that means my foot traffic, I needed at least 200 people walking through there daily. And we was barely getting, 50 to 60 people. So you got to think about it. The average customer is walking out with a sales price of $10, maybe $15. And I may be getting 50 people on a good day, but on an average, we was probably getting like 20. So if you do the math, on a low day, you can make about 200 with 20 people. On a high day, you make around 500. There's 30 days in a month. And let's do 200 times 30 now. I'm doing some mental math, so y'all don't cook me. I think that's a couple thousand. But let's say to operate this full facility, it costs you about $4,500 to $5,000 a month. So let's just say on the low end, you're getting about 20 customers. They're walking away a day, and then you're getting about a $300 average or something like that. So I'm doing 20 times 30. I'm getting about 6,000. It cost me about $4,500 to operate this business. So I'm looking at a potential profit of $1,500. These are just numbers I'm throwing off the top of my head. It's not accurate because we wasn't in that green. Some months we were green, some were red, but majority red. But you just got to think about all these things that factor into that. And at the end of the day, you got overhead pressure. Overhead pressure changes. When we first started, we didn't have a lot. Then I had to keep adding stuff because things had to get added. Security cameras, Wi-Fi, all that good stuff. So real estate requires responsibility. Overhead doesn't care about your motivation. Overhead do not care about how motivated you is to make this a successful business. Your overhead will eat you alive if you're not on top of it. And I was not on top of my stuff, right? And that's because I was too ambitious. It is what it is. I was too ambitious. And the model for us, I think we were 5 years late on a thrift store. I really do. I think we were 5 years late, really maybe 10 years late, because maybe if we'd done this a long time ago, we might have had some success in it. The location was decent. It was good, but it wasn't a big enough space. And we didn't get enough foot traffic because of the location and area. The area was kind of too far out into a specific neighborhood, and that neighborhood had about 4 or 5 mega thrift stores. So if you don't like something that you will go to those other thrift stores, but they were way bigger than me, so they can put out more product. You don't like something in our store and you come back next week, 50% chance that it'll still be there because we just didn't have enough foot traffic. So those were the issues that I ran in, and I don't think we think about that as entrepreneurs. So let's do it. You're thriving. You got a cookie business. You're selling cookies out of the house, or you're meeting people up. You're thriving, and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna go get a physical location. Okay, you think you there, right? And then you go get the location and you realize the overhead kills you. And it's not the customers, but it's mainly the overhead and the rent that's killing you. Now, the money that you were making, you're not able to see that profit because all the money you make, you pour right back into the building, to the rent, to the insurance, and all the other stuff, the commercial kitchens, and go and get a kitchen. You got the licensing for all that. You got that's a whole lot of money. And some buildings are not coded to be a kitchen. So now you got to spend more money to get the store open, right? And so these are all the things that you got to think about. So I want to walk you through a real life example of when you should go get a space and then when you shouldn't. And I want you to make that decision about entrepreneurship and real estate, because a lot of times we want to be the big dog and have our name on the building and not realizing what comes with it. So before you expand, this is the 4-month rule. And I wish I would have did this because I opened that thrift store maybe too fast. And this is maybe another reason why we didn't grow, in the direction I wanted to, because we might have opened it too fast. So before you expand, the demand must be consistent. And I think you should give yourself about a 24-month window before you actually open the space to see if the demand is there, because things change. The economy changes. Politics take a play into things because things change in how people spend. So spending behaviors change. Local things change in the community. So you got to give yourself about 2 years to really see if the demand is there, because you can have a really solid year and then things can change and you got more competitors or people just stop messing with your business, and then the demand is not there. So give yourself a 24-month run before you actually go out and go in and think about going and get this business or go and get this physical location. So when I say the 4-month rule, the 4-month rule is to basically identify, should we go and get this location based off of all these other factors? But some of these factors, such as demand, it'll take you a few years to determine your demand. So ultimately, before you get the location, you may have to spend some years really seeing if it really truly fits you. You got to see if the demand is there. You want to have 4 months of rental expenses saved. So if I'm going to go get a rental location and the average rental price for rent in these locations is $1,500 to $1,800, then I want to look at, okay, make sure I got enough for 4 months. I got insurance, I got utilities. So if the rent is $1,500, you got to think your insurance maybe $200, utilities maybe another $200. So let's just say that's $1,900. You got to make sure you have $1,900 times 4, which would be about $7,600. You got to have about $7,600 worth of emergency expenses saved for the business. So that means you got to go open another business account. You got to go have your everyday account for your everyday expenses and operations, but you got to have the emergency savings on top of you may want to have 3 accounts. You want to have a regular business checking, regular business savings, and then an emergency savings, because you're saving up if you're going to get this rental in person. You need to figure out, like, I need to make sure I have an emergency lump sum. Your revenue must cover fixed costs comfortably. Kind of going back to my last episode, if you didn't tap into that, when you're pricing this product or your service and you're thinking about going to get a brick and mortar, you might have to change your pricing, because am I charging enough for me to even be profitable? Am I charging enough to even cover my rent? And that was something that I didn't factor in. I'm putting out t-shirts and jeans. We're getting them in through the donations. We're not paying for the products or the services. So we're putting it out to putting the product out on the marketplace in the store. And then I'm realizing my prices is too low. That's why the average person walk out here with $10 a sale, because they getting a bunch of items for $10. But then I'm looking at my bottom line. It's not even making, the math ain't mathing for me to pay the rent. So it's like, hold on, I done done something wrong. So the revenue or the perceived revenue, it must cover those costs of that location comfortably. Expansion without reserves creates stress. Now, we had a good cash reserve, but that business, when we first got into it, I hired too many people. That's one thing I messed up on. I hired way too many people. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm the CEO. I'm not going to be there every day. I got a whole staff. I hired too many people. And the marketing play, we did the PR side. So we did the feel-good story marketing. We had a great publicist. My publicist, I work with her to this day. But I should have done more organic marketing, ads and flyers and things like that. We didn't do none of that stuff until 4 months in. So now I'm like, okay, hold on. We got this cash reserve, but I'm bleeding through it because I got rent, I got a staff, and I need people to know that the store is here. So it was a complete mess in the beginning. But these were great lessons for me to learn. I literally had to lose in order to win, for me to learn how to be a better business owner, which is why I'm able to talk to you guys, be a professor, and do the things that I do, because I'm able to walk you through losses and talk about things to help prevent you from making the same mistake, but also for you to be a better entrepreneur than I was in certain things. Let's talk about it. Ownership versus renting. The bottom line about this is, in real estate, and I'm not a real estate guy, so I don't get into real estate. I've done some real estate ventures. The best thing I can tell you about real estate, and I bought real estate, and I've rented. Ownership is always the way. Because if you rent, you're vulnerable to increases. Let's say I've been in this location for 5 years, and my landlord, or the guy that owns the strip, he said, you know what, I'm charging an extra $500 on top of your rent. So my rent was $1,500. Now I'm paying $2,000. I wasn't in a position to pay an extra $500. Now I got to adjust my business to make up for the extra $500. On top of that, you're having to pay more, and then you got to think about everything else that's constantly increasing. But you have no say so, because he owns the strip. You don't like what he or she has to say. Boom. Okay, go find you another tenant, or go find you another location. Sorry, not a tenant. You go find you another location. Then you're kicking yourself out of the business that you've been there for 5 years. Now you got to go find another location. You get another location. You got to negotiate with them. It just becomes a headache. So you're vulnerable to increases if you're renting. Long-term contracts limits the flexibility. So, and I remember we signed a 5-year lease with a 3-year opt-out. That opt-out was probably the best thing for us, because the store did what it had to do. It got us off the ground. It got my name out there. Got the business growing. Got the students involved, and we helped kids. And we sold some good items to the community. We done what we supposed to do. But we didn't need to be there anymore, right? Because our program was growing. Young Billionaires Club Thrift Store and the Young Billionaires Club program were two different operations. It's like I had two businesses in one. The program was growing. We went from after school, summer school, we got 5 to maybe 8 programs operating a year, and we just got that statewide initiative. We don't necessarily need the store anymore because it's eating away from the bottom line, and it was eating away from the mission. So for us, if we didn't have the opt-out, we'd have been stuck in that contract for 5 years. Now, you can always buy yourself out of the contract, but that's expensive. You got to pay, sometimes they make you pay 2 months of rent and the reserve. So now you're paying $1,500 times 3. I'm paying $4,500 to get out of this business, right, which is 3 months of rent. And let's just say I'm not making no money. Now I got to go into debt to get out of a contract that I'm in debt in. So it's just all over the place. No equity is built. You have no equity, so you have nothing to cash out on if you want to sell because you don't own it. Ownership builds leverage, but the timing builds survival. Owning something, you got a lot of leverage. Let's say I own the strip and I put my store in my office here and everybody else I'm charging them rent. And let's say I want to sell this. The property value on the strip might have went up, so I can sell it. I can cash out on my equity, or I can say, you know what, I can move my business out and move somebody else in. Whatever I want to do, I own it. I can do whatever I want. If I want to go up on the rent, I can. If I want to go down, I can. If my tenants are late this month because of a pandemic, I can support them. I can help them because I own it. I have more leverage, and I can take this to the bank and say, you know what, I want to go buy another strip. If I want to buy another strip, you can look at my financials, you can look at my assets and see that I bought this strip 20 years ago, and this is the equity that I have into it, and this is the property value of it. I have more leverage to go talk to somebody and get a bigger deal and go and get more money. But if I don't own anything, there's no leverage. I can go talk to the bank. I mean, the bank may fund your business to have a location, but if I want to do something else and maybe open up my own strip or build it from scratch or start from the bottom, I don't have enough leverage because I don't own anything. But the timing of everything builds the survival, guys. The timing of when you open it, when you close, that's how you survive into it. So to summarize it, guys, you got to go through the 4-month rule. Is the demand there? And remember, the demand takes about 24 months to really see if the demand is actually there. Do I have 4 months of expenses saved? Do I make enough? If my profit and my revenue perceived, numbers, is that enough to cover my fixed costs? And expansion without any reserve. If I don't have a rainy day fund, an emergency fund, if I don't got that 4 months, I'm going to be stressed out come grand opening and grand closing. Overhead will humble you faster than competition. You think the competition to be out there, making you stress and making you sweat. That overhead will humble you. Right, guys? It wasn't about, other nonprofits and other thrift stores. It was about my overhead. That overhead made me look at myself like, you not that business owner you think you are. And I needed to go through that. I needed to get knocked down a little bit because my ego was, at the time, might have been a little inflated because I was on a run where everything I was touching was just success. And I think in business, a lot of wins up front, and you don't get that loss, and you get that first loss, you don't know how to get up. For me, that loss was such a good loss where it taught me so much to where it's like, I can get in front of people and I can tell you why I went wrong and show you where you can prevent yourself from going wrong. And so that overhead will humble you faster than competition. It ain't about the competition. It's about that overhead that'll make you look in the mirror and say, hold on, I don't know if I did this right. So guys, let's wrap up. Action step. You know what it is. We end every episode with a real life action step for you to take notes and take it straight to the marketplace. I want you to calculate your total monthly overhead. And this is for you that wants to get into some real estate. You want to open up a brick and mortar. You want to go and get a commercial space. I want you to really calculate the total monthly overhead. And I want you to multiply that by 4. If you cannot survive with 4 months of expenses, don't expand yet. And that 4 month, that number may be an estimate. So you want to go up on that number. You don't want to play it too safe. Go up on that number. If the average price of a commercial unit for however much square foot you need in your area is going for $1,600, do your 4 months of expenses, put $1,800 on there because you just never know, right? And then you factor in utilities, you factor in insurance. You can get insurance quotes and all that stuff. Spend some time getting some quotes, put it all together, multiply it times 4, and you look at your financials. You say, okay, hey, do I have enough to do this? And if you got 4 months, you give yourself 4 months to get into a brick and mortar, get into a commercial unit, and start this business. But if you do not have it, guys, you stay where you're at and you keep building it until you do so. Or if your business doesn't call for it, you don't need it. Like right now where we're at, me and my staff pretty much are remote. We program at the sites. It's better for us to go that way because it's a better outcome. It's more efficient for the students. But that's my business model, right? Your business model may be different. You may need to have a physical location. So I'm not saying don't go and get a physical location. In summary, what I want you to understand is before you go and get it, can you afford it? Are you ready for it? And if you answer yes to both those questions, then go for it. But if you answer no to one or both, You need to stay where you at and you need to keep growing and scaling. You know what it is, guys. It's Money Mondays. Watch, comment, like, subscribe. I see you guys next week. Tap in with your boy. Guys, you can follow me on social media. You can subscribe to the channel. Send me an email. Check me out on LinkedIn. All my information is right here. Throw me some topics. I want to hear from you. Pretty soon we're going to do some business reviews, real life business interviews with real life business owners talking about the everyday struggle. Because guys, we're all normal people regardless of how we want to perceive it and how much money we make. We're all normal business owners. We may happen to be in different tax brackets, but we all started off with a dream and $1 and we're scaling it up. I'll see you guys next week on Money Mondays.